I was 19 years old when I found out I was 6 months pregnant. Ignorance and fear had kept me from the truth. I had to decide what to do. That very night, on a TV drama, there was a young woman adopted at birth who had gone looking for a birth mother, but her mom had closed the door on her past and moved on with a new family. I thought, what would I say to my child in 20 years if I gave him away? In my mind, it would be easier to hold myself accountable for what happened and keep my baby. I knew I had to offer him a good life. I wasn't entitled to offer him a bad life because I did have the choice to keep him or give him up for adoption. A month before the baby came, I finally told my parents I was pregnant. My dad pushed for Catholic adoptions. I told him that I had already decided to keep the baby. He said it was just rebellion, making light of the significance of my decision. It was 1981. Without health care, I went to the local hospital to ask about the delivery costs. They told me it would be $750 and that there better not be any complications. The day my son was born, I woke up like any other day and went to work. My stomach was bothering me, but I figured it would get better. But that evening, I went to the hospital, and a few hours later, there he was, the cutest little guy. I thought at that moment, we can make it. I made my last $10 payment to the hospital 5 years later, and I felt he was finally all mine. But at the time, I did feel overwhelmed. I had to put my early 20s aside and take life seriously, create a sense of stability for someone else. I had pregnancy disability, 4 months of welfare, and later government-subsidized childcare, which made it possible to pay bills and go back to work. But I never saw myself as poor. I never accepted the reality of where I really was. Even while crowded in a one-bedroom apartment with 2 of my brothers for 2 years, I always thought, this will all change. I always looked at the bad situations as only temporary. I could always look at others who had it worse, and that's privilege. We weren't rich growing up, but my dad always had a good job. With 7 kids, my mom never had to work outside the home. Every evening we had dinner as a family, time for homework, and long summers out playing. Not every person out there today has the same base of privilege, that same good experience from childhood. There were problems. There was alcoholism. My parents' marriage wasn't good, but even before I went to Alateen, I already knew those issues were theirs and not mine. I knew I had to find my own path through the situation. I feel I've accomplished a lot going against the odds as a single mom. Improved my education, got a well-paying job, bought a house for my son to grow up in and come home to, had food on the table, bills paid, and I could afford to be generous to others. I know there's a lot of misplaced shame and guilt out there with parents and with kids. I'd like them to know my story.